being test score waived is really for that student who says, standardized testing really isn't my thing, and I think I would just prefer to turn in my GPA and other materials. And that's totally fine because at Rollins, we understand that. But now with COVID and everything, being test score waived might become a very normal thing across the board. So being test score optional just offers the option for our candidates to not submit an SAT or ACT score. So we're going to look at candidates for their GPA, essay, recommendation letter, everything else that's going to be on your application. So it really just gives the option to not submit a test score. That's basically the general review of that.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that students have an option if you just aren't a strong test taker but do really well in the classroom. We wanted that to be something that you can show on your application. So that's really the reason why we went test optional in the first place. But there are lots of other reasons why schools might go test optional as well. One of them being kind of equity, right? So it does cost money to sign up and take the ACT and SAT. You need a solid internet connection. You need a place to take it. You need transportation to get to the testing site, and all of the things that come along with that. So another reason why a lot of schools are going test optional is for equity, to make sure that every student has the opportunity to apply, whether or not they're able to sit for an exam. Another question that we often get is, if I'm applying test optional, do I have to submit something else to supplement my application? For Rollins, the answer to that is no. You don't have to submit anything else. It's just the rest of the required materials that all students have to submit. In the past, we have requested that students who apply without test scores submit a portfolio or a presentation about themselves, but we've kind of gone away with that, and we're just making it kind of, like I said, equal across the board. All you have to do is select that you're applying without your test scores, and there's nothing additional that you have to do.
Another question we get is, how does applying without test scores affect my ability to be admitted? In the past and now, it does not hinder your ability to get admitted into Rollins. We wouldn't offer this choice if it would hinder your ability. That wouldn't be fair, right? So it does not hinder your ability to get admitted. The only thing, like I said, is that we're going to look at your other materials. At Rollins, we do something called a holistic review, meaning we're looking at the student as a whole person and not just a walking number, right? So your essay, letter of recommendation, all of that is really going to matter. So when we say it won't hinder your ability, we really mean it. So being test score optional, you don't really have to be, nervous. Am I not going to get in because I chose to waive my test scores?
We also will still consider you for the full range of our partial merit-based scholarships. So that's another thing to consider, is often if a student applies without test scores, that can kind of be what might hinder you a little bit, is scholarship opportunity, because the more competitive scholarships sometimes will require scores at other schools. At Rollins, luckily, we have opened up the full range of our academic scholarships to our test score waived candidates. So you won't be hindered at all in academic scholarship. And we're just going to be putting a lot of extra weight on your academic performance. So your GPA, the rigor of your courses, the rigor of your school, all of those things are going to be very important when you apply without a test score.
So another question may be, okay, so what are the benefits to applying with test scores, right? Because we're saying all these great things about being test score waived, and now you can get all these scholarships. There are a few benefits of applying with your test scores even at this moment. So at Rollins, we have something called the Alphonse Scholarship, and that is our full ride scholarship. In order to be eligible for this, you have to apply by the first deadline of November 15th, but you also have to submit either SAT or ACT scores. So that's one of the benefits of applying with test scores. Another is, if you want to be considered for the honors college, you also have to apply with test scores. And the last would be for our 3-2 accelerated business management program. This is our track, basically, where you do 3 years of undergraduate, and then you transfer right into Crummer and get your MBA. So it's basically a 5-year package of getting an undergrad degree and an MBA. So for these 3 options, it is best to submit a test score. Of course, now with everything with COVID and all the tests being canceled, there may be updates with that, but as of right now, it's kind of looking like you should submit test scores. But I don't know if Brooke has something to kind of add about that detail.
Yeah, we're having discussions about all of this, right? Because it's been really tricky this year. I think for the Alphonse Scholarship, because it is such a highly competitive scholarship and we only award 10 of them per year, that one is going to require test scores. Of course, you can always talk with your admission counselor if you're a student who thinks you would have maybe qualified to be considered for the Alphonse Scholarship, but haven't been able to sit for an exam. We can always talk one-on-one with you about that. Just be sure you're talking with us early on in the fall semester. The honors program and the AMP, the 3-2 Accelerated Management Program, we're having conversations about whether or not the scores will be required for those two programs. A lot of that has to do with accreditation. So we're just trying to be careful that we don't lose our accreditation standings if we do go test optional, but it's very possible that that may happen. So just, again, keep in touch with us, follow us on the website. We keep updating our website anytime anything changes. All right. So a lot of times students are asking, should I, these are my scores, should I apply with them, or do you think I'd be better off applying without them? Where we recommend that you apply without scores is if you've scored lower than an 1140 on the SAT, and of course that's just your reading and math sections combined, or lower than a 23 on the ACT. So if you fall below those two scores, that's when we would recommend that you actually omit your test scores for consideration. It would actually help you if you applied without your scores.
Another really helpful thing is if I take the exam later, so let's say it's canceled right now and you apply to Rollins, and then right before, we start to read in November, let's say you get your scores, or even December, January, right? We're being very flexible with those kinds of things. If you get your scores later, you can apply test score waived, and then you can turn in new test scores later. All you have to do is let us know. We do take unofficial test scores in the beginning when reviewing. So if you just want to let your admission counselor know what your new score was, we can review your application and possibly do a something called a merit-based scholarship appeal, where we're basically going to look at that and see if we can get you a new scholarship and or a new decision. So you can always change things on your application. Just have a close relationship with one of your admission counselors, whoever that is, based on where you live. But yes, you can always turn in a new test score. Even if you took the SAT, let's say you took the ACT later and you're saying the ACT kind of looks better than what my SAT was, feel free to submit that. You can turn in both, one, neither. It's really up to you. As long as you're just letting us know what's going on, we can try to make what's best for your application, right? We want to do what we can to benefit you the best. So you can just always log on to your portal where you applied in the first place and update this information, and just keep us updated on what's going on in your file, so we can look at that request for reconsideration given the new information we have received from you. So we can do appeals in those cases, especially now with everything being canceled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we remain hopeful that some spring test dates will open up. And so those scholarship and decision appeals, we will do all throughout the spring this year, even into May. So that's kind of the hope there. So how do you let us know if you want to apply as optional on the application itself? When you get to the test score section, it will say, would you like to add test scores, and you click that box. And so that's very simple. You just click that, and we don't even require that you submit test scores. We won't, if you scores and we have them on file already, we won't take them into consideration when we're doing our admission consideration. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I was going to talk about test scores, but now you want to be test score, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you have submitted them and they're in your file, but you want to be test score waived, if you click that box, they'll automatically be omitted. We won't see them. And if you originally applied with your test scores but want to switch to test score waived, you can contact us. Or once you've actually applied to Rollins, you will have access to what's called your applicant portal. And in that portal, there will be a place where you can actually do it on your own, switch to test score waived, or the reverse, where you applied without your test scores, but now you have a new score and you want to switch to test scores considered. You'll be able to do that in your applicant portal, and you can always contact our office and we can help you with it on our end too. And so let's see, we have a couple of questions that have come in, so I want to make sure we address them. So we talked a little bit about the Alphonse Scholarship, which again is our full tuition. It covers all of your full tuition, room and board. We only offer 10 of them per year. They're highly competitive. So there's some questions about, if all the test dates have been canceled, I wouldn't be considered for Alphonse. Unfortunately, that's kind of what it's looking like right now. But again, if you feel like you're a student would have otherwise probably qualified to at least be considered for that scholarship, you are more than welcome to talk with your admission counselor. Gigi and I are both counselors, and we offer one-on-one video conference calls with all students. So if you're a prospective student, if you're an applicant, you can access our calendar and schedule one of these calls so that talk with us about that. And again, a lot of this year is going to be kind of a case by case evaluation. So you are more than welcome to reach out and kind of plead your case. And again, we're hoping that there might be some test dates that open up as things get better, even in the spring. So we'll just have to kind of play that by ear this year. But right now, we are requiring test scores to be considered for Alphonse. Now we had a question asked about Bonner Leader Scholarship. Gigi, do you want to talk a little bit about Bonner, what that is, and what's required for it?
Yeah, so the Bonner Leader Scholarship is basically if you are a student who really loves doing service work. The requirement of that is that you would basically be in a class every year with other Bonner leaders and you would be doing service hours for that. If you're interested in it, basically just indicate that on your application and then we'll send your name over to the Bonner Leaders Director and they will take a look at that application process. For this year, Brooke, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just based on the GPA and this, if you're able to do the service hours and if you just really love doing service work, right? Because that's what a lot of it is based on.
Yep. Bonner Scholars has never taken test scores into account for that scholarship. So it's really based on involvement, service. So those are also pretty competitive, just so that you know. Again, we usually have a cohort of about 10 of those students come in each year. So they're really competitive, but they're not based on your academic. It's mostly leadership. Okay, we have a question about out-of-state students. Since Rollins is a private school, we've never treated out-of-state students any differently than we do with the in-state students. So tuition is the same, range of scholarships is the same for out-of-state. So that will not be any different than it has been the other year. And then, okay, so we have a couple of very specific questions for some of you who are telling us what you have on your SATs. I mentioned if you score below an 1140, that's when we recommend that you apply without scores. So if you have an 1140 exactly or above, I would say go ahead and submit the scores. And then a couple of you are saying, this is what I have, but I was hoping to get better. Again, as long as it's an 1140 or above, or a 23 or above on the ACT, I would say go ahead and submit what you have now. And then, like Gigi was explaining, if you are able to sit for another test in the future and you get a better score, you can always submit them and be considered or reconsidered for additional merit aid. We are always happy to do reconsiderations.
Yeah, the biggest lesson here is, in general, just work with your admission counselor because right now everything is really up in the air and we're being very flexible as much as we can with all these different components. So just keep in contact with your admission counselor really because everyone's case is going to look very different and we'll let you know if you should be test score waived and we'll let you know if you should be test scores considered. So we're going to work with you and make sure that your application reflects you in the best way possible. So we'll work with you.
So yeah, I think the question is kind of what is the GPA on a 4.0 scale, and our average is a 3.4. But that's just taking your core classes into account. So keep that in mind as well. So I was trying to answer before I got disconnected. There was a question about Eli saying, if you don't have scores at all because tests have been canceled and you never were able to sit for one, should you apply test optional now? The answer to that is yes. Definitely don't wait. Go ahead and submit your application and just select the test waived option for now. And then again, if you are able to take the test in the future, go ahead and submit them later on. Trying to see if we have any questions we haven't answered yet.
I don't see any new ones on my end, but if you guys have any questions, definitely just let us know.
There was a question about the typical score range for the honors program and the scholarship, Alphonse Scholarship. So that varies every year because it's really it's based on the applicant pool that we have that year. So it really kind of varies. To be considered for the honors program and the Alphonse Scholarship, typically you need to have minimum of 1400 on the SAT and really strong academics. So again, that's going to vary year to year, but that's at least a starting point for you to have an idea. Okay, keep the questions.
See another one here. Got a question about extracurriculars. So extracurriculars are definitely going to be important for your application. Sorry if I'm like touching my phone, it's because my computer isn't working, so I'm going back and forth. So sorry for the technical errors, everyone. But from Riley, we have a question about extracurriculars and if they're important in the application process. So absolutely, like I was talking about before with the holistic review, we are really looking at the student as a whole person and not just essentially a walking GPA. So everything on your application is really going to matter. Nothing is too small, right? And with extracurriculars, we love to see that kind of stuff. A few of you mentioned the Alphonse, so maybe you're interested in the Alphonse, for example. We love to see everything from service work, you know, if you're the president of your class, if you babysit on the weekends, no matter what you're involved in, go ahead and put on the application because we love to see the diversity of what a student kind of balances and everything. Now, of course, you know, a GPA and test scores are one kind of category and extracurriculars are another, but that holistic review really lets us look at everyone on a case-by-case basis. If the GPA is a little lower, but for example, you're involved heavily in a lot of stuff, we're going to notice that, for example. So the holistic review really looks at everything as a whole. So got another question. So yeah, you know, the kind of question about good GPA, bad test score. Do you accept that? And that's kind of the whole reason we used to offer, or we do offer, test score waived. That's the reason it was introduced, right? We want to give the students the advantage who feel like I'm not a good test taker because it is standardized, right? We want to be able for those students who shine in the classroom but may not be able, you know, to take tests because of so many different reasons. We want to be able to give students the opportunity to come to Rollins, to be acknowledged, to get scholarships even. So this is something we've had for 12 years. And, you know, just because COVID's happening and the tests are getting canceled, I think it's more of a hot topic, but it's something we've always had. So absolutely, we accept students who are, you know, good in the classroom and, you know, quote unquote, bad at tests, because that is the reality, is that test taking can be difficult. So yeah, that's the whole reason we have test score waived. We have a good amount of our students who apply test score waived, and you know, it's a great thing. It's a great option to have, and that's why we've had it for so many years, and we're going to continue to have it. And that's why we even offer scholarships, right? So if you have a great GPA, not great test scores, that's totally fine. That's why the test score waived option is there. So I hope that answers your question. So I have another question. Is the weighted GPA more important than the regular GPA? So like Brooke mentioned before, we look at the unweighted core GPA. So your GPA might look a little different. So if you're looking at the weighted GPA with your APs, IBs, whatever that looks like, it might look different on our end because we do recalculate. Not to say that if you take really rigorous coursework, right? Let's say you're in a lot of AP classes or something like that. That's not being discounted from you. We're definitely going to acknowledge the fact that you are in these weighted classes, but we do need to put the GPAs on a level playing field. And then we'll look at rigor of coursework, we'll look at GPA trends. So everything that makes up your GPA, we'll notice, we'll see, we'll recognize. But at face value, we do recalculate the GPA.
What do you think of students who don't take many AP classes? That's okay. We encourage students to take their courses to their ability, right? So don't take too many classes that are going to overload you so much to the point where you're no longer going to be successful in those courses. But take what you think would be challenging enough that you'll be able to succeed. We like to see that you've been challenging yourself a little bit year over year. So it would be great if you haven't taken any APs, maybe try one next year and build on that. But it's not going to hinder you if you haven't been taking up many weighted courses. There are some schools that don't even offer weighted courses. So of course we take that into account as well. Let's see. The question came in about, do test scores need to come directly from College Board? You are able to submit self-reported test scores, and we will consider. We'll accept those. We can even offer you an admission decision based off of self-reported scores. But if you are admitted and enroll at Rollins, you are going to have to submit proof with an official score from College Board. So yes, we will need that eventually. How do you handle a situation where a student is doing full-time dual enrollment? Will they be able to enter as a sophomore? So if you are currently dual enrolled full-time and complete your AA degree, you will come in and you'll have all of the benefits of a student, a transfer student that would transfer in with an AA degree. And that is, you'll have all of your general education courses waived. So you'll just be able to dive right into your major. So you might actually have sophomore standing as far as your course standing goes, but we're still going to treat you as a first year in terms of housing and orientation, because we still want you to have that new student experience when you get to campus, just as any normal new first year student would. Oh, and then the follow-up, I won't have an AA. So that's totally fine too. You'll just come in, we'll give you all the credit for the courses that you have taken, as long as you've gotten a C or above in the course and it's from a regionally accredited institution. So you may have elevated standing, but we'll still treat you like a first year for housing. Gigi, do you want to talk about the Select app?
Sure. Sorry. Now my questions, I can't see the questions coming in. So basically, the question was asking about the Rollins Select application.
Yeah, just what it is and how. What do you benefit from it?
Okay, yeah. So we basically send out the Rollins Select application to students who we feel like would be a good fit to Rollins. You've interacted with us before, so we know you, and we just feel like you would be a good fit for Rollins, basically. Applying to the Rollins Select application, some people ask, do I have to do that? And will you know that you've sent me that if I apply through the Common or Coalition applications? And the answer is yes. You can apply through whatever you would like, and we will still know that we sent you the Rollins Select. So it's basically just saying, we feel that you would be a good fit, and it's applying through the Rollins application if you were to do Rollins Select. But like I said, please feel free to apply through the Common application and Coalition applications, because we don't favor one or the other. Whatever you apply through is fine.
Yeah, there was a question about, again, submitting your scores, and you can always submit your official score. So someone said, if I self-report my scores, can I still submit the official score? Of course. Actually, if you're going to submit the official score, that's what we would encourage, because then you don't have to go through the headache of having to submit it after the fact. I am looking at our school code for those of you asking from College Board. I believe it is 001515, but I want to make sure I'm giving you the right one. It should be on our website. Yeah, 001515 is our code. Okay, if I wanted to submit a portfolio, what would you look for? Anything in addition to the requirements is obviously optional. So if you're looking to submit a portfolio, it's completely up to you what you'd like to submit. Sometimes students create a Zimi profile. If you haven't heard of Zimi before, it's an opportunity for you to upload some pictures and videos and maybe some sample work that you've done that you're proud of. And so sometimes we get that, and that's cool to see. So it's really up to you since it's optional.
Yeah, feel free to get creative with that. I've had students send me a song they wrote and their art profiles. So if you want to turn in anything like that, please feel free to do that. We love seeing that.
Okay, still looking to see if we've missed any questions here. What percentage of applications apply and are accepted without test scores? That's a great question. So we typically will, about a third of our class will come in test score waived. So it's a pretty large percentage. I think Rollins is known out there for being a test optional school, and so that's put us on the map. And so that's why it's usually a pretty big percentage. Maximum number per year? No maximum. We just monitor the numbers. We want to make sure that there's enough housing and room in the courses. We don't want our classes to get too big because we pride ourselves on having that small kind of intimate academic setting. So we aim a class of around 550 every year, and it usually falls around that. If I haven't answered your question, if you're waiting for us to answer it, go ahead and just read it, just because we're getting quite a bit of backup here. Is the Zimi profile considered a portfolio? I mean, it's just considered anything that comes in addition to the requirements would be considered additional material, and we would just take it into account. So a Zimi profile, an art portfolio, a resume, additional recommendation letters, all of those things, if you submit them, we'll take a look at them. So it can only help. Can you talk about the personal statement and what it might involve and how it differs from a formal essay? Do you want to take that, Gigi?
Sure. So basically, the personal statement versus the formal essay. On the Rollins application, it's going to ask basically for that personal statement, whereas on the Common and Coalition applications, they'll basically give you an essay prompt, and then you'll take it from there. Whether you're doing the Rollins application or the Common and Coalition applications, the essay is really the only part of the application where the admission counselors get to hear your voice. I know from hearing from all my fellow colleagues, Brooke and I, we always talk about how the essays are our favorite part because this is where we hear from the student. So whether you're doing the Rollins application personal statement or whether you're doing the essay prompt, just make sure you're using your voice and make sure we're getting to know you. Make sure it's getting revised by teachers, mom, whoever, just so, you can look for grammatical errors, anything like that. But other than that, we just want to get to know you, be as unique as possible. In terms of length, it doesn't have to be super long, but also, a couple of paragraphs or just like a sentence isn't really going to do it either. I would just say we've seen 500 words, a couple of pages, but as long as you're getting your point across and it's unique and it's speaking to your voice, whatever application you're on is fine with us. We view them all in the same kind of light, no matter what application you're going through, in my opinion. So what you're ever applying through, we just want to get to know you and be unique and use your voice. But I don't know if Brooke has something to add about that.
Nope, that's about all I would say. The select application will tell you that one of the benefits is having kind of this informal essay, and so that's kind of what we're getting at. Is we don't have a formal prompt. We just want to get to know you better. The select application somebody asked about, decision notification, it does not necessarily mean that you'll get your notification sooner than any other student would. That's only if you apply early decision, which is our binding commitment option. So if you are committed to Rollins, you absolutely will attend if you are accepted. You can apply early decision, and that's the only round where you could hear back from us sooner than any other student might. Okay, we're getting a lot of questions about portfolios. I want to be clear that that's completely optional. You can submit it if you want. The majority of students apply without a portfolio, but if you have one and you're proud of it and you'd like to submit it, you are more than welcome. For any major at all that we require, that we have. We don't. It's not reserved for any art majors. You can submit a portfolio no matter what, if you want to. Again, optional. Let's see. Which years of high school do you focus on in terms of grades? Yeah, so we look at all of the grades that you have on your transcript. So oftentimes when you're applying very early in your senior year, that's just your first 3 years of work. We do take into account the fact that a student may have struggled with the transition to high school and has been doing better ever since freshman year. So we do take that into account. We look for grade, so improvements. We look for increased rigor, challenging yourself. So that is something we will take a look at. Also, if you want to submit your senior year grades, so this is something kind of similar to submitting test scores after you've applied, you can always submit your first semester grades when they come out in January, sometimes February. When those come in, if you want to submit them and have us look at them for reconsideration for an admission decision or scholarship, you are welcome to do that. Do you offer rolling acceptance, or is there a date to accept acceptance letter? We are technically not a rolling admission school. And what that means is the sooner you apply, the sooner you're going to hear back. They're just rolling the decisions out. Technically, we're not rolling, but it is likely the sooner you apply, the sooner you'll hear back from us. For students who are applying regular decision, which is that non-binding opportunity, you'll want to aim for November 15th as your deadline, because that's the scholarship priority deadline for all students. And it's likely we have to give priority to the early decision applicants. We do guarantee that they'll hear back by December 15th. So we do give those students the reading priority. But then after that, we start rolling out regular decisions almost right after that. So it's likely that you'll hear back early January, even into early February. That is kind of the soonest that you could expect to hear if you're a regular decision applicant. Oh, the platform that we were talking about earlier is called Zimi, Zeeme. And I believe it's an app you can download on your phone, or you could do it on your desktop. And you create a little profile for yourself, and it's a way to just kind of show off who you are and what you like to do. And then if you get your IB diploma scores, will these be considered for the application as well if you apply by November 15th? So I'm trying to understand. So you'll apply by November 15th, and then the following May is when you'll get the IB diploma scores. Those probably will not be taken into consideration because May 1st is the national decision deadline. So all students have to have chosen their school, kind of enroll by May 1st. Again, on a case-by-case basis, if it's something you'd like to submit, we're happy to take a look at them. The benefit of being a small school, right, is that we have the ability to kind of have these one-on-one conversations and consideration. So you can always submit them, but for admission consideration, it's likely that those IB diploma scores would not be factored in. However, if you enroll,
sorry,
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, we can see that you're in IB classes, right? So we're going to anticipate that you might be getting your IB diploma. So we're gonna see the rigor of that coursework. So if you are heavy in, AP classes, if you're in the IB program, we're gonna see that. But the diploma would, like Brooke said, come later, because that would be after you get a decision and scholarship and everything.
Yeah, and then once you enroll at Rollins, if you have your IB diploma score, you would submit that so that our registrar can assess and give you credit for the courses that you've taken. So that's kind of when it would come into play. Okay. Oh, I already answered that one. Graduate this year from high school. So if you're talking about 2020, so if you're like if you're going to graduate in December of 2020, you want to apply for the spring of 2021 to start this January, you can apply now. I would recommend that you apply now. But if you're asking, so somebody asked, I graduate this year. If you're a senior this year and you're graduating in May of 2021, you can apply now. Our application is open, and you'll just aim again for that November 15th deadline. Okay, yeah. You'll apply. The application is live for seniors, and you would aim for November 15th. When should we have conversations with admission counselors about scholarships? That can happen anytime. Like I said, we do one-on-one video conference. You can have access to our calendar and sign up for one of those at any point. You want to do that in early fall. But again, we're happy to have those conversations at any point throughout the application process. Sky asks about what are the benefits of applying early decision. Do you want to talk about that, Gigi?
Sure, yeah. There's lots of benefits of being early decision. I would say that Rollins, with early decision, you should do that application type if you feel like Rollins is your top choice. So if Rollins is your top choice, then look into doing early decision, right? Few of the benefits include that you hear back from us really fast, like we've been talking about. So the first deadline of November 15th, you would hear back by December 15th. So within literally a month, you're going to know about your decision. And for the rest of senior year, you know what school you're going to, what scholarships you're getting, all of that kind of stuff. So that's one really cool advantage. Another advantage, like I said, that priority scholarship deadline is November 15th in general for everybody. But again, early decision round one is November 15th. So that's another additive for that. You also get early financial aid award notification. So if you fill out the FAFSA, on time and everything, you should get your financial aid award package a couple of weeks after your acceptance letter, which would be about a month after you apply, of November 15th, right? So you'll get your financial aid, scholarships, everything, a couple of weeks after December 15th. So within that really small time range. And then the last benefit is that you get priority course scheduling with a faculty member. So for all of our students, our faculty advisor kind of puts together the schedules for the first semester, which is really great because students don't have to stress about, what classes should I take and everything. But with that being said, for our early decision students, those faculty advisors will actually create those schedules for early decision students first. So that's another benefit as well. But, like we said, this is a binding agreement. So it really should be for a student who feels that Rollins is a top choice because it is a binding agreement, meaning if you get admitted into Rollins, you're basically saying, I'm going to go into Rollins. So lots of benefits. But if you're not thinking of doing early decision, I would just say aim for November 15th because that's the priority scholarship deadline for everybody, even if you're early or regular decision.
Awesome. Okay, we have a question about how do we redeem and use micro scholarship money from Raise.me. So raise.me is another website for you guys to check out. It is an opportunity where you create your profile, you list all the things that you're involved in, the types of classes that you're taking, the grades that you're receiving. And what it does is raise micro scholarships for you. So they're really small scholarships. They could be $100, they could be $200 to $500, right? So what it does is start accumulating these micro scholarships. And again, it's called Raise.me. And you can plug in some colleges that you're interested in, and it will show you what that college could potentially offer you in terms of scholarship money. So if you have created a profile on Raise.me, you've built it all out, and it's saying that Rollins is going to give you $10,000. That is basically a guaranteed amount that you could get minimum. If you have raised $10,000 on Raise.me, and then Rollins comes back and says, actually, we're going to give you $20,000, then the $10,000 goes away and you get the $20,000. It's not something that you can stack on top of what we award you. However, if for some reason we said, our offer is only $5,000, and you can then come back to us and say, well, you said $10,000 on Raise.me, and then we will, as long as everything checks out and you answer the questions truthfully, we will match that amount. So it rarely happens that we would have to do that. Usually what we offer is around the same as what you have in that account. I think we've pretty much answered all of the questions that have rolled in. So we've got a couple more minutes left. If you have a couple more questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll stay on just for a few more minutes to see if you guys have any more. For those of you who are all set, thank you so much for joining us this evening and for the little bit of lag time, and thanks for staying on despite all of the technical issues. We have recorded this, so I'm hoping that even despite the lapse, that there's still a recording out there that we'll be able to send out to all of you. So again, for joining us. Again, we're going to stick around a little bit longer just to see if there are any last minute questions. We did just get one from Ruth. Is one teacher recommendation letter required or more? We actually require that you submit one from your high school counselor. So whoever your guidance counselor or college counselor is at your school, that's the one that's required. But again, if you have additional letters, so if you do have a teacher or a coach or somebody in the community who knows you really well, you can submit additional letters in addition to the counselor rec. Okay. How can we say, oh, so you can always submit materials can always be sent to our admission email, which is just admission@rollins.edu. You can always submit things there. Counselors have the ability usually to send things electronically to us through either Naviance or SendEDU. There's a bunch of different platforms out there that counselors use, so we can accept materials through that, but email is always sufficient as well.
See a question here about will you have a less chance of being accepted if you're test optional? No, not at all. That's really why we offer that test score optional, is because we want students to be able to come to Rollins even if they feel like they can't take those test scores. That's why we have the test score waived option, and it will not hinder your ability to get admitted into Rollins. The only thing is a little less in merit-based scholarships, but we still have scholarships for test score waived. So you don't have to worry that you have less of a chance, because that's not the case.
Okay, I think we've covered almost all of it. So I'm just checking one other place. I think we're good. So thank you all again for joining us this evening. You can always connect with us if you have additional questions that weren't answered tonight. We're always available by email, video chat, text even. So you can always connect with us, ask your questions. And thanks again for joining us. We'll connect with you hopefully soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.